Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw, and I'm here with Matthew Upchurch, who's chairman and CEO of Virtuoso, the luxury travel network. And this is part two of an interview that we've been doing with Matthew after Virtuoso just held its very first Virtuoso Travel Week virtual version. And this is getting too much of a tongue twister, Matthew, but we're going to talk.
It was the same for me.
and so we're going to talk to Matthew in this segment more about general things like the future of luxury travel with COVID and travel in general. And this is Insider Travel Report, and you'll find out all about that and more with Matthew Upchurch. How has COVID-19 really affected travel, particularly luxury travel? In previous crises, and we all remember them, we've gone through them quite a lot over the past 30 years. Luxury travel was either not as affected or recovered more quickly. How has it been different this time?
Well, what's different is that never in the history of the planet have 100% of all countries in the world had travel restrictions. Mm-hmm. So that's where it's different. So what's different here is it literally did shut everything down, right?
Including the cruise industry, right? Yeah.
That's never happened. Through world wars, for God's sakes, we actually had people traveling to different parts of the world. So that's what's never happened before. So this absolutely, luxury, it doesn't matter where you were, you stopped traveling. And so that's what's different. I will say, though, that I do think that what we can learn from some other crises is that the luxury traveler obviously is better traveled, is better informed. I remember, for example, when Mexico, my country of birth, was going through its horrible time, and luxury travelers were actually some of the ones that really helped Mexico come back, because they didn't take whatever was saying on the news as gospel. They're well traveled, they're well educated, they were looking at, they're curious, they had a background of international travel. And by the way, the reason I kept telling Mexico and other destinations why the luxury traveler is important is that they're not only important because they spend more, they're also important because they're opinion leaders. Right. So when that person from Cleveland comes back from Mexico back then, and somebody goes, "Oh my God, isn't it dangerous?" Right? It's like, what are you talking about? Right? So I actually think, to me, it's very obvious that international luxury travelers, sophisticated travelers, will obviously be on the forefront of a recovery, just by the nature of their background and all that. I think the one kink, though, because we do have the statistics, the luxury market is a very broad market, but it's also very skewed older. And I think that's the one area that's the tougher, because if you look at, I'm ready to travel, and you look at our surveys, which we have that data from our own network, is, obviously 18 to whatever, it's like, I'm ready to go. Yeah. But as you start skewing older, obviously that propensity comes down tremendously. So I do think that age, but on the flip side to that, there's also some age wave research that, it kind of goes along the same thing, where there's a lot of pundits that said that older people, now this is before the crisis, that older people were worried about their retirement. Right. Well, there's actually some age wave research that said actually most of them were not. Most of them were actually looking forward to it, and travel was the number one thing they wanted to do. So I think we're going to see the word health security become embedded, and it won't be just about the vaccine. It'll be about the vaccine, it'll be about treatment, and it'll be about testing. I think all those three elements. It'll also be, and when I also talk about health security, I also think I'm talking about the fact where, which is one of the reasons that I've been so frustrated with what I feel is over malignment of the cruise industry, because the cruise industry, gets maligned by, as an easy target. Well, they're the only product category that actually 100% accurately measures sickness.
Yeah. That's right.
Right. So they're getting berated for that. So obviously there's a lot of things that need to be done there. But I also see, for example, that down the road, you look at a place like Bodrum, Turkey, or certain places in Mexico. If somebody's building out a multi-billion-dollar resort area, in the past it used to be you didn't even think about the health infrastructure it was kind of like whatever was there because there were so few emergencies. I think you're going to start seeing health infrastructure, just like on a cruise ship, needs to be put into the master plan of any place that wants to attract tourism.
No, absolutely. And it is already happening, I believe, with a lot of destinations are putting in and consulting with health and safety, new consulting groups. A whole new business has sort of been thrown up to consult with destinations and suppliers about health and safety. And yeah, the new normal may very well be, as you just said, health and safety is a huge part about that, regardless of whether we have a vaccine. So
right.
That's going to be very interesting. Now, what kind of luxury products and services are Virtuoso clients gravitating to during this crisis? I mean, we hear a lot about private or exclusive, or those things are even more.
Yeah, that is
a whole island. Yeah,
that is absolutely true. Anything that is, I mean, like, first of all, I was on a call yesterday with Europe, and John, the MD of Virgin Limited, was just saying that you could not get a country property out in the UK. We know that a lot of the dry places, I just told you about my stay with my family in Cannon Beach, Oregon, right? So beach, a lot of space. Obviously it's the city hotels right now that are having the biggest problems. Also because of all the different perspectives. So, but there's actually a shortage of suites. There's actually a shortage of anything that has space. Anything that is private is booking out there. And by the way, that's the other reason why we've been telling people there's also going to be, for example, Albert just got back from Mexico, right? And he was at one of our properties down there. Well, those properties are also only being able to operate a certain capacity by government decree.
That's right. About a third or something. Sometimes it's crazy.
Right. So that's one of the things that's one of the reasons. But by the way, so to answer your question directly, right now it's still drive, regional, private, space, right? Those are the things that are whatever. But because of some of our wanderlust data, right? What's really amazing is, but where they want to go, like where are you dreaming of going? South Africa, Italy, so. Nothing motivates a human being more than taking something away they once took for granted.
Right. No. So, So no, you're right. And those destinations will eventually come back, maybe, but in a slightly different way, where more precautions with health and safety and more. Yes, I mean, luxury has always been about private and exclusive. So that's not anything new, but we just see more emphasis on it right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? The other thing about this is I'm incredibly grateful that the Virtuoso Network is as global as it is, because one of the ways that we have been able to benefit our U.S. and Canadian members is that our Australian members are sending people to our Australian properties. Our European members, UK members are sending. So that's been a really big boom and a really big benefit of having spent the last 25 years growing the Virtuoso Network on a global basis.
Well, I know I've been trying to get into some very high-end resorts to give them a little coverage, and they're saying, well, we'd love to have you, but we're sold out. And I'm like, that's great for you. Let's wait till the fall and when maybe it gets a little bit weaker, but we'll see what happens. Now, I did want to talk to you a little bit about what's going to happen to travel advisors as a result of this crisis. Asked a few weeks ago, in the course of lobbying for additional funding from the government, said that we could lose as many as 71% of all travel agencies as a result of this crisis, because we haven't recovered as soon as everybody thought we will. Do you agree with that assessment or disagree?
Look, first of all, the reality is that we have a small business crisis. So I'm gonna answer that by saying, we are generally, if you look at the travel agency business, it is primarily small businesses, a lot of women-owned businesses, a lot of new businesses, right? So this is not a crisis of just travel agencies and travel advisors. This is across the board. And we could have a whole nother interview about, and I think it's very important that, we put pressure on the importance of that, not only for us, but for all of the small businesses. So I think, because otherwise, what, are we all going to go work in an Amazon warehouse?
I don't know.
Are we going to deliver packages for Amazon? And there's going to be like 4 tech feudal lords, and the rest of us are indentured servants.
There you go.
But so sorry, I didn't mean to get off on that. But I don't. That's a hard one. I mean, it's possible, but I would also say it also has to do with the entire recovery of the entire travel ecosystem.
Right.
Because, because you also have the thing, it's like, well, if you're really big, they're not going to fail because they have the cash. But also you look at the other end is like, there's a lot of smaller agencies that don't have a lot of overhead that have been very smart, very nimble. They're going after very specific niches. So I don't like that narrative that's like, well, it's all going to be one thing. If anything I've learned over all these years is that I'm always surprised by, first of all, I just want to say, anytime I talk to people outside of this industry and I say, you want to see resilience? How would you like to be in a business where, 20 years ago, the airlines cut commissions, overnight, 50% of your revenue is gone, right? How do you like to do this? So I also think that the other thing that, you and I had talked about in the first interview about how disruptions accelerate trends. I also think that the number of different business models for agencies is going to explode. They were already there. Right. Retainers, plan to go fees. I mean, all those things around it. And at the end of the day, there's only one person that's going to determine whether we're around or not. And that's the traveler.
That's true. That's true.
And I believe, yeah.
Well, I mean, the corollary to that is that once again, a crisis like this, it illustrates the value of a travel advisor. And so the importance of a travel advisor has maybe never been, greater. And yet we're talking about, a lot of them going out of business. Now, is the perception of that value going to fundamentally change now and really truly turn advisors into crucial partners with their clients and travel suppliers well into the future? Because sometimes we seem to forget, we had 9/11 and that was crucial. We had the recession and that was crucial. And everybody said that's a great time for travel advisors. And now we have this, which is dwarfing almost everything. And yet it looks like travel advisors are once again crucial to travelers and the value they perceive. Do you believe that? I mean,
well, I'll answer. Instead of answering in one of my broader terms, I'm going to answer that first. The most specific advice I have right now, and then I'll build on that. The most specific I have advice for you right now as a travel advisor is you have a certain number of clients, and I guarantee you, if you look in your database and you look at your historical, it's that old 80-20 rule, right? And not only about the amount of business they do with you, but also those people that are your promoters, your people that your advocates. If you were ever shy about asking for a referral, please get over it. Now's the time to look at your best clients. I have so many stories from Virtuoso Advisors with amazing stories about how their customers appreciate them, what they sent them. They did this. You know what? I know I had to cancel, but I sent you a commission check, or I'd send you a check because I know you lost it, whatever. But now is the time to go to your very best clients and also say, look, I'm making it through. It's tough. It's this, whatever. But as we start recover, who do you know that you know me best? You know what I value. Now is the time. You have the time. You're not overloaded with bookings. You have the tools. You have the whatever. Now's the time to do that. The second thing that I would say about this is the number one competitor to travel advisors has never been other travel advisors. If you look at the overall, I mean, yeah, we could say that the number one competitor has always been OTAs, that aggregators, or Booking Direct, right? And part of that is we need to learn how to merchandise ourselves better. Mm-hmm. So now is the time to pay attention to think about the entire value proposition. I've also said this for a lot of years. If you tell people that you book travel for a living, I tongue-in-cheek kind of joke that you've lost before you even started, because there are literally dozens of new ways that are being invented how to book travel every single day. Mm. If you walk into Nordstrom's, do you pat the person on the back because they know how to ring the cash register? you kind of expect it, right?
Right.
So this is also a matter of merchandising. The value of what do you do before, what do you during, and what do you do after the trip? And how do you how do you put that in the language? And I'm not going to give you a prescriptive language, because the language has to connect to the audience that you're going after.
Right.
So I think that that's one of the exercises that everybody should be working on right now. You know, we've done a lot of work in this 15 years ago. We call it the collaborative travel planning process, where we break up all that, and you literally say, here's the value add I do here. By the way, it's also a great roadmap if you want to charge fees. This is why you would pay me. These are the ingredients that are worth paying for.
Well, certainly fees have become a new, it's like nothing is new, right? We're talking about fees with Dr. Bob Jocelyn back in the 90s, and he was all for them. And I thought that argument had been, yeah, you should charge fees. And I'm not talking about transaction fees. I'm talking about consulting fees. And it's for value for your service. And all of a sudden, it's the new hot button. And everybody's saying you should look at different models of compensation as a travel advisor, because, clearly when you're not getting commission income, you have to get other things to survive. And
the only thing that I would add to that is you're right, because, Bob and I have been working together for all these years and whatever, and I go back and we've been on that subject for a long time. I will give you the one piece of advice. And by the way, nothing we ever say here, right, is absolute. I'm a big believer. There's so many different successful models. There are multiple roads to Rome. But in the fee area, I had a very epiphany moment around fees. I was all gung-ho about you should charge fees, this, that, the other. And I still overall believe that, because if you are going to charge fees, it's connected back to this merchandising thing. If you are going to charge fees, then you've got to deliver on what you're saying you're going to do for that, right? So that also determines the level of fees you charge for what. But the other thing that I will say is I had this one member that I thought she charged fees. And I kind of said something in a meeting where I kind of insinuated that, and she raises her arm and says, I don't charge fees. I'm like, I was shocked.
Yeah.
Well, tell me how you work. And this is what I love about the diversity of the way people do things. She says, I don't charge fees, but let me tell you how I do it. I literally have a group of our partners, XYZ hotel companies, this, that, the other. Every time I get a referral, I literally say this: if you book this group of partners, I'm so in with these people. I do so much business. I do whatever. They take care of me. They pay me well. You get a benefit, and you don't have to pay a fee. But if you want to do a bunch of other stuff, I'm not your gal.
Right.
So I found it very interesting. And what made me realize is, we have new entrants that started their business purely on retainers and everything in between. The one thing that I did figure out is that it's also about your self-confidence. It's also about whatever. And a lot of it has to do, if you're going to be a trusted advisor charging fees, it's also about having the courage to say, Mr. Schillinglaw, let me tell you how I'm compensated. Let me tell you how I make a living.
Right.
A lot of times we have this thing about like, well, we're not going to tell them we're getting commissions. Like, they don't know. Right. And so the reality is that what we have found in consumer research is that authentic conversation. Let me explain to you how I make a living. Right. And I do get fee, I do this, whatever, blah, 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 actually establishes that trusted advisor relationship.
No, and that's totally important, especially now post-COVID. Anything else you can think of about the future with luxury travel and COVID-19? We've talked about, the value of travel advisors. We've talked about health and safety, how that's going to be. Someone said health and safety is the new luxury. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think
the only thing I would end on is two things: is make sure you have a framework, make sure that you have some sort of a working plan, so that you don't feel so, and a vision of where you want to go. You've got to have I use this thing called the playbook from the table group, but it's like, what is that framework? Because having a framework actually makes you more creative and makes you less susceptible to when things are coming at you all the time, right?
Right.
So that would be number one. And number two, I would also say, human connection is more important than ever, right? One of the things we got out of VTW 2020 was what a morale boost it was, right? What connecting with people, that gave them hope. And, we in this industry. And then the last thing I would say is self-care. I've been saying this in my videos. Self-care is not a passive activity. This is a long road to hoe, right? There's a lot of stuff still coming at us. So, what are those things that you do to self-care to help you, get through all this?
Absolutely. Well, that's great advice. And Matthew, as always, great to speak with you on these issues. Maybe someday we'll actually do another live interview, when we're at the same place at the same time.
We will.
We will. I know we will. And hopefully sooner than, which we all hope to get back to Vienna, which was, we were all looking forward to it, which was 20 years since the renaming of Virtuoso. And we were both there. I don't know. I mean, you thought of it, and I was covering it. So I was really looking forward to this year, but now hopefully in 2021. Again, great to see you, Matt.
Thank you, James. Take care.
I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.